Hey everybody, it's Chris, and it is currently, as I record this, February 27th, Thursday, and I'm hoping to have this video ready for tomorrow morning. And big surprise today. They just dropped a new Unearthed Arcana, and we have, as part of this Unearthed Arcana, which is fairly large, we have an update to the Artificer, which we had Unearthed Arcana 4 a few weeks ago, and I did a video where I went over all the differences between that Artificer and to the one we have in Tasha's, which is the official version. I'll link that video up above if you didn't check it out. But today what I want to do is I want to discuss how they have changed the Artificer from the last Unearthed Arcana version. I have to say that, in that video, I had a few sticking points, and those all seem to have been addressed. I have one new sticking point that I want to bring up in this video because there was a change that I don't love. And then we also have a new subclass, which is the Cartographer. So I'm going to go over the features of that, and there's nothing to compare it to. It's brand new. So up on your screen is the new version of the Artificer, and I'm just going to go over the changes from the previous Unearthed Arcana version. So I'm not going to bother rehashing what already happened with the last version. But just to let you know, the core Artificer traits are the same. Becoming an Artificer is the same. With the Artificer features table, some class features have changed names, but the numbers here are all the same. Another thing to mention is spellcasting has not changed. It's the same as it has always been. And then we are going to move all the way down here to Tinker's Magic. So this replaces Magical Tinkering. Magical Tinkering allows you to create a mundane item using a magic action, and it lasted for 1 hour. This was a sticking point for me because I figured some of these items you're going to need for more than an hour. I'm not going to create a bedroll that I can only use for an hour. What's the point of that? So they have changed that. They now say that this item will last until you finish a long rest. So that's how long I need it for. That was actually the fix I thought would be best, and it looks like they've done that. So that's great. It has also been improved, so you now know the mending cantrip. So you get mending for free. I've always figured that Artificers should have mending for free. We have subclasses that rely on mending, and it just seems like an obvious cantrip for Artificers to have. So I'm all for that. So I'm pretty happy with where Tinker's Magic has ended up, and if it ends up like this in the official version, I have no problem with that whatsoever. Then we move on to Replicate Magic Item, and they have added some text here. So the wording is all the same as it was in the previous Unearthed Arcana, but there's a couple sentences in this one that weren't in the original. So this has been added. When you choose a plan to learn, you choose it from any magic item plans table for which you qualify. Your qualification is based on your Artificer level. If you replace a plan you know with a new plan, any magic item created with a replace plan immediately vanishes. This simply doesn't change anything about the mechanics, but what it does do is in the previous Unearthed Arcana, they kind of put in these little sentences like class features at level, or class features at level 6 and level 10 and so on. And they're not really class features. And so it makes more sense to put it under Replicate Magic Item. So that's fine, but no change in terms of the mechanics. And then we're going to move on to the magic item plans themselves. For level 2, the only changes are additional options. So we have added the Manifold tool, which is a new one that I will be going over in this video. Repeating Shot, which is the same. Returning Weapon, which is the same. And Wraps of Unarmed Power +1. So you can make +1 wraps for, your monk. So that's the only changes at level 2, but the changes at higher levels, very happy with those. We'll get into them as we get into those levels. Level 3, Artificer subclass, of course, no change there, except that we now have a fourth option, which is the Cartographer, which is good because if we think about, all the base class options, they all have 4 subclasses in the new book, and so now the Artificer in its new book is also going to have 4 options. Ability score improvement has not changed. Then we have magic item tinker. And what we've got is drain magic item, which is unchanged from the previous Unearthed Arcana, but we've added 2 different features. Charge magic item and transmute magic item both are new additional features that the Artificer gets at level 6. And they've removed expanded replication, which if I mentioned before with replicate magic item that they added some words to it, and basically it's the same thing. So we have 2 new features not replacing anything. So we have transmute magic item, and this allows you to change one item into another as long as you have plans for them once per long rest as a magic item. I really like this. So basically, if we look at plans known, we see it goes from 4 to 8. If we look at magic items, we see it goes from 2 to 6. That means we are always going to have 2 plans that aren't in use. And this is going to allow us to access the plans we didn't choose whenever we need to. So I really like that. And let's get back to where we were. Transmute magic item, very cool. And they have also added charge magic item. This is a bonus action, and what you do is you touch one of your replicated items that has charges, and you can recharge it by a number of charges equal to a spell slot you expand, or the level of a spell slot you expand. So if you expand a 2nd level spell slot, you can restore 2 charges to the item. And I think the value of that will maybe depend on, how powerful the item is, which might depend on your Artificer level. But yeah, so 2 significant upgrades to our level 6 feature. And then let's go to the magic item plans. So we see magic item plans, Artificer level 6 plus. This has also been changed. So the old version said that you could make uncommon armor, wand, or weapon. This has been replaced with a curated items list. And none of these items are spell storing items. And this was one of my biggest issues with the old Artificer or the previous Unearthed Arcana was spell storing items. Allowing the Artificer to create them with their replicate magic item is broken. So they've removed that. That's great. A big relief as far as I'm concerned. Now is going to make the Artificer far more playable without, abuse just sitting there for players to be tempted by. So yeah, that's great. And then we go on to Flash of Genius, which had no change. And Magic Item Adept also has no change, except they removed the redundant feature of what they call it, expanded replication isn't there anymore because the wording of replicate magic item now covers that. And then we have the magic items plans for level 10. And if we look at our magic plans for level 10, so there's the top half. Can I get them all on the same screen? No, I can't. There's the rest of them. You'll see that what used to say uncommon ring or wondrous item is replaced with uncommon wondrous item. And we get a curated list in terms of rings. And that, again, helps solve possible abuse problems. So, again, good. And then we get to level 11, the spell storing item. This one got a lot of conversation with the last Unearthed Arcana because now you can store 3rd level spells. And they have done 2 things to this. And in both cases, these are additional restrictions to this item. So the first restriction they added was they said the spell cannot have a consumed material component. That means if you want to, for example, put Revivify in your spell storing item, you can't because it would be a way to get around the expensive component of Revivify, which is, I think, a 300 gold piece diamond or something like that. And now you can't do that. I don't know if that's such a big deal, but anyway, That is a restriction. Here is the restriction I really like. They've added a sentence, and I think I better highlight it on here just so you can see. They are so glad to see this. Once a creature has used the object to produce the spell's effect, the object can't be used this way again until the start of the creature's next turn. In my last video, I discussed a possible abuse where you could just hand off a spell storing item and use it several times in the same round. They have now added this, so you can't do that, which is great. That's again a big relief of just an obvious abuse, because this doesn't require attunement, so you can just hand it off to somebody else, and they don't need to attune to it. But now they wouldn't be able to cast out Fireball right away. They'd have to wait until the start of the creature's next turn, and then that would be available. So much better. Big improvement here. And I should mention that the spell storing item is still much improved from the official version, because we can still do 3rd level spells. But these restrictions, I do think, keep it far more in line with what we want it to be. Okay, and then Magic Item Savant, again, just removing the unnecessary redundant wording. And then for our 14th level items, and this is the last set of items we get. The old version said you could pick any rare armor, ring, wand, weapon, or wondrous item, which was a disaster or a potential disaster because of spell storing items. It's now replaced with rare wondrous item and then a curated list of armor, weapon, and rings, which is such an improvement. A huge improvement. So glad to see that. Okay, and then we move on to level 18. Magic Item Master has no change. Epic Boon has no change. And then we get to the capstone. Here's my sticking point. I'm not a fan of this new capstone. And I got to tell you that the old Unearthed Arcana, one of the main things it was criticized for was the capstone, because the Artificer, the official version, and Tasha's has an incredibly powerful capstone, and obviously the designers have decided it's too powerful. I kind of get their point. It is extremely powerful. So they nerfed it, right? They in fact they got rid of it and redesigned it entirely. But the new version was lackluster. And if you were going to get a capstone, yeah, it doesn't need to be overpowered, but you definitely want it to feel pretty impactful. And this new version, not a huge fan, I got to tell you. Okay, so Cheat Death was on the old Unearthed Arcana. And what it said was if you ever drop to 0 hit points, you can disintegrate one of your magic items that is replicated. And instead of dropping to 0 hit points, you drop to 20 hit points. And here it says if you're reduced to 0 hit points but not killed outright, you can disintegrate any number of uncommon or rare magic items created by your replicate magic item feature. If you do so, you instead drop to a number of hit points equal to 20 times the number of magic items disintegrated. Now, it just occurred to me as I was reading this version that there is some bad wording here. So if I look at this, it says if you do so, you drop to a number of hit points equal to. So let's say I've got 10 hit points and then I drop to 0 and I've got 6 items and I'm like, I'm going to disintegrate them all and go to 120 hit points. Well, I can't drop to 120 hit points because I only had 10 to begin with. So I think they should reword this. Like, I think what they mean is that if we disintegrate all the items, we'll have 120 hit points instead of 0. I think that's what they mean. And if that is what they mean, then they should reword this. Otherwise, it would invalidate the value of being able to do more than one item, since if we're dropping already, we probably didn't have a huge amount of hit points to begin with. So yeah, that's Cheat Death. So it's slightly tuned up. And then Magical Guidance. So the old version of Magical Guidance from the previous Unearthed Arcana allowed you to add a d6 to an ability check once per turn. Not that great, right? And that was the one that was getting a lot of criticism. This is the new version. Whenever you use your Flash of Genius and the affected ability check or saving throw still fails, That use of Flash of Genius isn't expended if you have attunement to at least one magic item, which as an artificer you probably do. For me, this is worthless. I love Flash of Genius. Flash of Genius is a fantastic feature. Getting more uses of it would be great. But the way I play, I always know the amount I fail by. And Flash of Genius is a set amount. If Flash of Genius is used in any game that I run or I play in, I already know whether it's going to work. And if it's not going to work, then I'm not going to do it. So this magical guidance in any games I play in is not going to come up. Now, if you play in a group where you don't know how much you failed by, now you do know you failed before you use Flash of Genius, because you can only use it after the ability check or saving throw fails. But if the DM doesn't tell you the DC you're looking for on that saving throw, and you roll 13 and they say it fails and you have no idea what you needed to roll, then something like magical guidance would be helpful. But yeah, at least at the tables I play in, this is not helpful at all for the style of game I play. So I think it will depend. Some people who play where the DCs are a mystery, then they might find this feature a lot better than I do. But for my style of play, this is worthless. So I really don't like it, because it's worthless to me. I kind of hope they change it again, because this one isn't speaking to me at all. Okay, so that is the Artificer. I should also mention the spell list is unchanged, except, of course, they removed the Mending Cantrip because you're getting it for free now, so you don't select it anymore. But otherwise, the spell list is the same. I should also mention, we're going to go past the subclass to Homunculus Savant. Also is not changed from the previous Unearthed Arcana, so it is word for word the same. And the items, like Boots of the Winding Path and so on and so forth, are also the same, but they've added a new one. So let's talk about that now, then we'll talk about the subclass. The new one is Manifold Tool. Wondrous item, common, requires attunement, and you can create this right at level 2. This tool takes the form of a wrench, screwdriver, or other basic tool. As a magic action, you can touch the item and transform it into a type of artisan's tools of your choice. Whatever form the tool takes, you have proficiency with it when you use it. I think that's great. I like this a lot. And I think for an artificer, so good, right? I would be very tempted to make manifold tools manifold tool with my replicate magic item feature. I was pretty happy with that as well. I don't think it needs any changes. So let's talk about the subclass. So here is the subclass, the Cartographer. So this is, brand new. It's not a redesign or anything like that. And I always like that. I always like when they try, new ideas. And I kind of like the idea of this, the Cartographer. So let's go over what it's got. It has a ton of stuff at level 3. So first, we're going to start with tool proficiencies. You're going to get proficiency with calligrapher's supplies and cartographer's tools if you don't have them already. And if you do, you can pick a different proficiency, which I always appreciate when they put that in there. In addition, when you craft scrolls, you can do so in half the time. A lot of people love to craft scrolls, so doing that in half the time is going to be very popular, I think. Let's go over the spells. So like all the other subclasses, we're going to get some free spells. So let's bring them up. There they are. We're going to get Fairy Fire, Guiding Bolt, and Healing Word at level 3. They're all pretty good spells. Then level 5, we get Locate Object and Mind Spike. I love Locate Object. Fantastic spell. Mind Spike is trash, but I understand why you're giving it to the Cartographer. Level 9, we're going to get Clairvoyance and Haste. I think they both make sense. Level 13, Freedom of Movement and Locate Creature. They're both decent spells. And level 17, Scrying and Teleportation Circle. Again, decent spells. Though utility, we're talking a lot more utility on this list, which again kind of fits with the Cartographer. I would expect more out of combat stuff. One thing I immediately think of is, what am I going to do with my spell storing item? Well, if I look at my level 3 options here, Clairvoyance and Haste would be my 2 options there. For something like a Cartographer, maybe I want Clairvoyance and just have that ton of utility. You could do Haste. Haste isn't a bad spell. Haste is risky, right? Because if you lose Haste, if you lose concentration on it, or it ends for any other reason, you basically lose an entire round. So it is a big risk, but when it works, it's decent. So you can pick there. But if you want the combat option, Haste is the combat option. Of course, you can pick any other Artificer first level or third level spell, but generally, I would want to do third level spells, and the third level spell list for Artificers isn't that enticing for a spell storing item. But we have 2 more features here, so let's keep going. We get the Adventurer's Atlas. It says whenever you finish a long rest while holding Cartographer's tools, you can use that tool to create a set of magical maps by touching at least 2 creatures. And we're going to go over this in detail because this is a big feature, one of whom can be yourself. Up to a maximum of creatures equal to 1 plus your intelligence modifier, minimum of 2 creatures, potentially your entire party. Though you may want to consider things that aren't in your party, like NPCs or pets or that kind of thing as well. Each target receives a magical map, which is illegible to all others. The map lasts until you die or until you use this feature again, at which point any existing maps created by this feature immediately vanish. While carrying the map, the target gains the following benefits. First off, awareness. The target adds a d4 to its initiative rolls. That's nice. I mean, if we consider third level Artificer, we're probably talking about a +3 intelligence modifier. That means 4 creatures. Might be your whole party. And eventually there'll be 6 creatures, and that's almost certainly your whole party. Getting a d4 to every initiative roll. And initiative is good. And then positioning. The target knows the location of all other map holders that are on the same plane of existence as itself. That is circumstantial, right? If you have a party member who's, hidden and invisible and you need to know where they are, that could be helpful. What it could also help is if you are splitting up the party, then you would know where the other party members are, though tactically, or just my experience in D&D, don't split up your party. It's generally a bad idea. But if it is not a party member, like a PC, and you're splitting up from them and giving them a map and know where they are, that could be helpful. And then it says, this is the part I wanted to concentrate a little more on. When casting a spell or creating an effect that requires being able to see the target, a map holder can target another map holder, regardless of sight, so long as the other map holder is still within the spell or effect's range. So what that means is, let's say, there's a fog cloud, and you have an ally, they have a map, you have a map, and they go down, and you want to bring them back up. Well, you could use Healing Word on them, even though you can't see them. In the video where they're talking about this Unearthed Arcana, she mentions that if you had an ally who was hidden and you wanted to cast a spell on them, you'd be able to do so, even though you can't see them. And another example given is if a creature was swallowed, that you'd be able to cast a spell on them, even though they're swallowed. And if that is supposed to be the way it works, this does not achieve that, okay? Because the spell casting rules say in order to cast a spell on another creature, you don't necessarily need to see them, but you do need a clear path to the target. There is nothing here that says that you do not need a clear path to the target anymore, which means that any barrier, such as the stomach lining of that purple worm or being around a corner, those things will still prevent you casting a spell on that target. So if that's the way it's supposed to work, they need to add that to the wording here. Otherwise, this is only affecting line of sight. It does not create a clear path to the target. So that restriction would still apply. And If that restriction still applies, I think this is of limited value. If that restriction does not apply, I think this could be overpowered and really something you could cheese the heck out of. So yeah, just something to keep in mind. But there was the example given in the video specifically that you could cast a spell on a target that had been swallowed by a purple worm. But the way this is worded, that is not the case. I think that was a bad example. At least that's the way I read it, unless I'm, understand the rules for cover wrong. So that's Adventurers Atlas, and yeah, this part here I think is interesting, but if it's supposed to bypass cover, then it needs to be reworded. I hope it isn't supposed to bypass cover, because D&D already has really high rewards for the combat style where you do your thing and then hide around a corner, and this gives you just one more way to exploit that if we can avoid the rules for a clear path to the target. So I hope they don't put that in. I hope it was just a bad example. So then we get on to scouting gadgets, and this is still level 3, by the way. So we have boost. On your turn, you can expand half your movement to teleport to an unoccupied space you can see within 10 feet of yourself. You can't use this benefit if your speed is 0. I think this is fairly useless, except in very circumstantial cases. Half the time I want to teleport, it's because I got stuck in a web, or I got grappled, or I got restrained, and this doesn't work because my speed is 0. And if I am not restrained or anything like that, unless my movement is blocked somehow, then I'm giving up more movement than I'm gaining here, because it's only a 10-foot teleport and I'm giving up half my movement, which is probably at least 15. So I don't think it's that great for terms of movement. I guess if there's a blockage and we need to get by it, it could be useful there, like you're stuck in a jail and you want to get past the bars or something like that. So there are circumstantial cases where it could be useful, but I don't think it's going to come up a whole lot. And radar. You cast Fairy Fire without expending a spell slot. You can do this a number of times equal to your intelligence modifier, and you gain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. So that's basically your intelligence modifier number of extra first level spells. At level 3 with Artificer, that is great, because first level spells is the highest level you can cast anyways, and Fairy Fire is a decent spell. I don't think this is going to continue to be good at high levels. You saw a similar thing with the Stars Druid. Stars Druid gets Guiding Bolt, their wisdom number of times per long rest, and when they get it, it's pretty good. But at high levels, Guiding Bolt isn't that great anymore. And same thing with Fairy Fire. Fairy Fire is a concentration spell. Do you want your 15th level Artificer concentrating on a first level spell? Probably not most of the time. I guess you could say Rangers have the same problem with Hunter's Mark. And then Portal Jump at level 5. So that's all the level 3 stuff. I will say it is a lot of stuff. At level 3, most of it is ribbons, right? A whole lot of ribbons and circumstantial stuff. There's not a whole lot of big oomph stuff unless they, worded that one bit wrong and we can avoid cover with spells. Still a lot of things there, and even just giving the entire party a d4 to initiative is good. Then Portal Jump. As a bonus action, you teleport up to 60 feet to an unoccupied space you can see a number of times equal to your intelligence modifier minimum of once, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. Teleporting is good. 60-foot range is really nice. There's a lot of subclasses that get Misty Step for free, so being able to teleport 60 feet is double that range. And you can also use this ability without expending a use if the destination space is within 5 feet of a creature carrying a map created with your Adventurer's Atlas. Doing so destroys the map that creature carries. And I note that this still doesn't, bypass the 60-foot range. So I probably wouldn't do that very often unless I was out of uses and it was an emergency. So I don't see the second part of this coming up very often. But yeah, bonus action teleports, 60 feet. Reasonably good. I'll note that a lot of the other features that give you free Misty Steps, which of course has the reduced range, but usually give them at earlier levels. Like the Archfey gets a very similar feature They get it at level 3, and their Misty Step, although it only has a 30-foot range, it does other things as well. So this maybe comes on a little later. Like maybe this should have been one of the level 3 things. I don't know. And then level 9, Ingenious Movement. When you use your Flash of Genius, you or a willing creature of your choice you can see within 30 feet of you can teleport up to 30 feet to an unoccupied space you can see as part of that same reaction. And reaction teleporting is good. I will mention, going back to Archfey again, they get a reaction feature for teleporting that comes on at an earlier level. I think it's level 6. And it's more likely to come up in emergency situations. So, yeah, this is all right. I don't love it. I gotta say, for, if it was part of a level 9 feature and there was something else, I'd say cool. As the entire level 9 feature, I don't know if this quite cuts it for me. But at level 15, we get Superior Atlas. This is a really strong feature. It says, you gain the following benefits. Safe Haven. When a map holder is reduced to 0 hit points but not killed outright, that creature can destroy its map. The creature is then teleported to an unoccupied space within 5 feet of you or another map holder of its choice and is stable. There's no range on this. I think that's a good feature, though it seems like they really want the party to split up, don't they? Don't do it. It's kind of enticing with this stuff. Maybe we should split up. Don't split up. But nevertheless, I think that's a pretty good feature. And then Unerring Path. If you were one of the map holders for your Adventures Atlas, or if you were one of the map holders for your Adventures Atlas, which I would assume will choose to be, you can cast Find the Path, which is a 6th level spell, without expending a spell slot, without preparing the spell, and without needing spell components. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. So, a 6th level spell, once per long rest. Obviously, Find the Path is super, super thematic for a cartographer, so it makes sense. Artificers can normally only cast up to 5th level spells, so being able to cast a 6th level spell is good. And then Unshakable Mind. Well, at least one map is created with your Adventures Atlas, or one map created with your Adventurer's Atlas still exists. Taking damage can't cause you to lose concentration on your Artificer's spells. Very strong feature. So all 3 of these are pretty good, I think, meaning that level 15 is stacked. So I think the Cartographer gets lots of really good stuff at level 15. And I kind of wonder, could they take one of these and move it to level 9? Like Safe Haven, could that be moved to level 9? I don't think you can move Unerring Path to level 9. You don't want 9th level characters casting 6th level spells, maybe. Though a full caster could cast 5th level spells. But, I think something like Safe Haven could be moved to level 9, make level 9 a little more exciting. And level 15, I think, would still be all right. But that is the Cartographer. And like I said, I like the thematics here quite a bit, actually. I do think it's slightly undertuned. I think it could use a little bit of a boost. Level 3 has tons and tons of stuff, and because of the D42 initiative, I think it's okay. Level 5 is maybe just a little too late for teleport, but 30 feet more. Maybe something, I don't know, something else on there. And level 9 needs a boost, I think. And then level 15 is good. So I don't think it's disastrous. This is a decent subclass, but it compared to the other Artificer subclasses, except for Alchemist, it seems a little bit under. So I'd like to see it get, a little bit more oomph, but I like where they're going with it. And that is the new Artificer, and in this Unearthed Arcana, they have a ton of new feats. These are all Dragon Mark feats for Eberron, so that's going to be a pretty long topic, so I'm going to save that for my next video. I will never get this video out on Friday if I have to go through all the Dragon Mark feats. So Artificer today, hopefully the Dragon Mark feats on Monday. Otherwise, until next time, I'm going to sit back, relax, and have some fun. D&D is for everyone. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you soon.